Welcome back to the Reach Your Dew Point podcast. I'm Roy Atkinson, and today I am excited because I'm talking with Genefa Murphy.
Hello,
And
Roy.
it's great to see you again. Welcome. And if you've been listening to the podcast, as you're aware, I usually try to grab some snippets from people's LinkedIn profiles.
Okay.
And
No. What have you found?
I've got a couple of beauties here from Genefa. It starts off by saying she's a passionate business leader. If you've ever run across Genefa anywhere, you would already know that. But one of the things, or two of the things that she says is she's learned the value of being authentic as a leader and a teammate. And no doubt about it, if you've met her or talked to her at any point, you will know that. I love this one. The importance of being a relentless learner, as am I. And that brings us to another part of your bio, which is your current job. And what you're doing is acting as the chief marketing officer for Udemy.
Yes, I am.
Which is a big e-learning company. So you're spreading the knowledge all over the world, Genefa.
We are. We're all about learning, upskilling, reskilling. Yeah, learning to drive outcomes, whether it's professional or personal growth. So it's super exciting to actually be a part of it and get to see all those transformations happening.
That's a lovely thing. And you've been with Udemy now for a couple of years.
Yeah, nearly 2 years. Coming up on 2 years, I've been with Udemy.
Time has
It's flown. It's flown, Roy.
It has gone quickly because, from my perspective, it was not that long ago when we talked when you were the chief marketing officer of Five9.
Exactly.
Which is your previous position. One of the things that fascinates me about you is that your PhD is very specific.
Yep.
And it is user acceptance of new technology.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me more about that. That's a wonderful thing.
It's interesting because it is very specific, but it's also fundamental. And I was just thinking about this actually the other day. So really what my doctorate looked at was what are the factors that make people or encourage people to adopt a new technology. And those things are really what some people might consider basic, but they have stood the test of time. It's things like performance expectancy. Is this going to help me do my job faster? It's relative advantage. Is this going to help me to get an advantage, to be more efficient, to earn more, to be more effective? It's things like social influence, right? Do important others in my sphere of influence or in the sphere of influence I want to be in think that this is an important, a cool technology? And if you look at leaders who are challenged today with things like, how do I create an agentic workforce and an AI-enabled workforce? You've got to think about all of those things. How's AI going to give me a performance advantage? How's it going to give me a relative advantage? Is it going to, if I'm not doing AI, am I behind the times? Right? So it's specific, but fundamental. And I think it can be applied in so many different domains, whether that's marketing or product management or just general looking at innovation.
And you've done a lot of those things yourself.
I have. I am not, as I said, a career marketer.
Yeah. And so you just touched on really what the heart of the podcast is all about. It, as you know, it's called, I talk about the Dew Point. It's a trademark, by the way. And the Dew Point is that jump off point that when the acceptance happens and you decide you want to adopt a new technology or you want to start something new, you want to move in a particular direction. So as you went through your education and your career, what was one of the things that drew you toward the marketing side of the house? What made you decide to go in that direction?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So it's only now that I look back and I reflect on my career that I think I can answer that with a little bit more clarity. If I think about it, I went from my doctorate, which was very much about theory, to consulting, which was about practice, to then product management, which was about not practice, but doing, building, creating. and then into marketing. And really, what for me created that leap into marketing was everyone knows there's a very close relationship between product and marketing, and sometimes they become intermingled. But what I found is I didn't really understand marketing. I thought I did, but when you really start to break marketing down into all of its component parts, there are lots of different angles to it. So for me, in order to become a better business leader, yes, I had the technical know how, the consulting, the product management, but I wanted to learn the marketing and the go to market side of the house in a much more detailed way than I could by just being a partner with marketing. So for me, that was sort of the impetus to go and learn more and say, okay, how can I figure out what this marketing beast is so that I can be a better business leader?
Interesting. And now, and you mentioned AI, of course. We all have to talk about that these days. And what advantages do you see, and what risks do you see in your world, in the world of marketing? I can think of a million advantages that you must be seeing and hearing about, but tell me some of the other things that are going on.
Yeah, I mean, listen, AI it's incredible. I mean, right now is such an exciting and scary time to be a marketer, in my opinion. Right. So if you look at AI, I mean, the speed at which you can do market research, content creation, create a campaign, create a workflow, it's just incredible. So the opportunities with AI, I think genuinely are endless. And I think every team needs to think about how do they upskill, reskill, and create AI fluency and create an AI habit. I think the challenge is everything is moving so fast, so it can be overwhelming, right? It can be overwhelming to understand as an individual contributor or as a leader. How do I roll this out quickly? How do I adopt AI? Where do I adopt AI? Which of my teams can move quickly? Which of them need a little bit more time and a little bit more coaching? And so I think that there is also the danger that of genericness. I love AI, and I mean, I use so many AI tools on a daily basis. It genuinely is my little buddy, and it's great for riffing ideas, making something more succinct, making something, using analogies, summarizing, using it to, for example, I created an agent for my team for our OKR process where I fed it a 17-page document of the logic behind the strategy so that the team had an assistant that they could go to sort of query for different questions how their OKRs might fit in with the strategy and the context. But then at the same time, I worry that in our rush to use AI and in our rush to speed up everything and be super agile, we've got to make sure that we don't lose that human connection, right? That human creativity, the spark that comes from ideating and bouncing ideas off of one another. You can do that with AI today, and I do that with AI every day. But I think there's something about that human connection which is really special.
That's the key. I think everybody is searching for that balance between the human and the automated and the the AI aspects of what we're doing. And I use AI to do things like summarization, creating an outline. And I'm going to go back for a second to when you were with Five9.
Yeah.
And this is something that I've talked about a lot since it was a very interesting moment. One of the analyst meetings that we had there, Rowan Trollope was then the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
And Rowan said, "What if?" And he prefaced that, of course, as we all know, that the classic line that we hear when we call customer service is, "Your call may be recorded for quality purposes," right? Everybody hears
Our
that.
favorite line.
Well,
Our favorite line.
we know all the calls are recorded, and some of them, a tiny percentage historically, have been looked at.
Mm-hmm.
Rowan said something very interesting. He said, what if we could feed all of those calls into AI? And then I could ask a question like, how many times do customers mention our competition and is it positive or negative? And I thought, yes, there we go. That's the key. Getting information that would otherwise be inaccessible because it's
Mm-hmm.
just too much work involved.
Yeah.
And getting that kind of augmentation and assistance from AI, I think, is where we are getting to. It's not going to be the cure all. But that brings me to another question is how does Udemy
Mm-hmm.
provide answers to some of the questions that we're asking here, and what are you seeing as far as course interest in some of the things that Udemy is offering?
Oh, I mean, AI has skyrocketed. I mean, over the past 12 to 18 months, we have seen the number of courses on AI go up over, I think it's 130%. We've seen learning on AI go up tremendously for both individuals and our 17,000 enterprise customers. We've seen our instructor community lean into it, and the pace at which they're having to create content has just grown, right? Because if you look at it now, there's a new AI tool. It feels like every day, right? Are you doing vibe coding? Are you doing vibe learning? Are you doing vibe marketing? Are you using, and you've got all of these vibe coding tools, and then you've got all of these rapid prototyping tools, and then what I would call the established players, the Canvas, the Figmas, they start building it into their products, right? And then Google gets in on the game. I mean, Google I/O happened, and I was just blown away by their list of 2025, capabilities and features that they were bringing. So we have just seen that the interest and the consumption of AI related content just skyrocket. I think it's like there's someone purchases an AI course on the marketplace. I think it's like one every 10 minutes, right? And so it's organizations who want to build AI fluency. It's individuals who are saying, how do I differentiate myself? How do I grow in my existing career? How do I get into the workforce and make sure that people know I'm AI savvy, AI enabled? So yeah, it's just been tremendous. And we've seen it move from generative AI, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, and now it's AI, and now it's all of the AI tools that everyone wants to learn really, really quickly.
And that of course makes sense because one of the things that I've seen in my world is that organizations are much more interested in how does this produce value for me? What does it do on the business side for me? And of course, that's where everything was headed to begin with, but it wasn't doing that the first few years.
Yep.
As we saw AI begin to develop, it was, oh, look at this cool thing it will do. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, we're still seeing that with the animations and the
Oh yeah.
avatars, and we're going to continue to see that. And of course, there's going to be some commercialization of those capabilities as well.
Yeah. But
But
we've also seen, I think the tolerance for AI has grown within enterprises as well. And what do I mean by that? Is yes, organizations are still very thoughtful about security policies and data policies when it comes to AI. But for example, we launched a capability, our AI assistant, which to your point in the 5-9 example, in our example, it takes all of the information that's in the course, maybe a 40-hour course, and puts that at the fingertips of the learner, right, with the form of the AI assistant. And since we launched the AI assistant, we saw our learners ask 5 times more questions in the enterprise when
that's
they had AI assistant.
awesome.
5 times more questions because people felt comfortable speaking to the AI, asking the AI questions because they could do it anonymously. And, that's a place where maybe they wouldn't have reached out to an instructor, or they wouldn't have reached out to another individual to ask the question, but they were comfortable learning more, learning better, learning more efficiently using the AI assistant. But 5 times more questions, that's incredible.
That is amazing to me.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. And now my head is spinning around that and thinking of things like why wouldn't you ask the questions? But it's a lot of times we're just sort of intimidated by somebody who's
Yeah.
teaching a class, or we're afraid to do it.
Yeah, or
Fascinating.
you don't quite know how to phrase the question, right? And the thing is we all know you get better at prompting, you get better outputs from AI, but it's also that safe space where you can sort of ask a bit of a random question and then have more of a conversation, right, with the AI, and it's not time restricted. You can ask as many questions as you want, and you can go down as many paths as you want. So yeah, we've seen great adoption, not just in the courses that are being built on the platform, but the enterprises that are adopting the AI capabilities in the Udemy platform as well. And things like custom AI learning paths, skills, understanding what skill maps to what outcome and capability is super hard. We've leveraged all of the data in the Udemy platform to be able to give that intelligence to our customers so that they can create these custom AI learning paths. And again, it's just great to see what people are coming up with and challenging themselves to learn more, because they can now query this wealth of knowledge.
That's it. It is a fascinating time to be around in this business, is it not?
Yeah, it's like I said, super exciting, super scary as well, because you've got to learn all of these technologies. You've got to try and keep up with everything, and it changes, every 2 seconds. So, but yeah, it's an incredible time.
I would make it, being a former musician, I would make the analogy to jazz players who
Oh,
have this capability of adapting to exactly what's going on in the moment.
oh,
And jazz and blues players tend to be the best at that, listening to what the other musicians are doing, adapting things instantly, riffing on what they know, bringing quotes from other pieces of music in. I love to listen to that type of thing, and I think it's interesting to think about it that way.
I love that.
But
I love that
so
you use the word riffing, because as you were talking, Roy, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, oh yeah, it's like, but that's a skill, right? That's a skill that we've all got
absolutely,
to learn. And you got to think about, especially if you're a leader, what are the different types of people that you have in your org. And some people are like super agile and they love to riff and they can do that, and then other people are a little bit more structured and they need a little bit more time and they need a little bit more process. And so how do you find all those balances and still move quickly and still start to develop that AI fluency, the AI habit? Yeah, it's super interesting.
and organizations, I think, have to be careful. And I mean that not only in the sense that they need to think about how they're using AI and what the consequences of that are, but on a previous episode, I was talking to Mark Thomas, who's a brilliant governance risk and
Mm,
guy. He's a tremendous risk analyst and goes around at very high level consulting in that region. And Mark said he was talking to a board of directors, and one of the board members asked him if they could be attacked through their internet connected coffee pot. And so he decided to test the theory that they could be. And he did. He got into the coffee pot, which led him into the closed circuit television system. So now he had access to everybody's movements in the building, et cetera, et cetera. So he showed that, even something as innocuous as that could be a penetration point.
yeah.
And I think that uh, we have to be careful from that respect. But the other thing he said was that one board that he talked to said they're not going to let people use AI tools at work. But let's see what ChatGPT has to say about that. And he thought, wait a minute. Wait a minute here. This is a goose and gander situation.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
So,
and it's becoming part of the norm, right? It's the new, if you think about things like search, right? Now, how do we search? We've all shifted to this conversational type search, right? So think about that impact on marketing and SEO and long tail, short tail keywords, content, and now you've got AI, AI that can check AI. Are you writing AI generated content, and then that gets pushed down from Google? And so yeah, it's there are so many dimensions to this, and it's such a huge opportunity. But I do think individuals and organizations are looking for guidance, right? They're looking for how do I do this in an efficient, effective, agile way? How do I move quickly? But how do I break enough, but not too much? And so we also see it's not just the rise in AI content consumption on the platform and a rise in the use of our AI capabilities on the platform, but it's also those surrounding skills as well, right? It's creative thinking, it's communication skills. And in particular for Gen Z, we did a report. We found that 84% of Gen Z respondents said that soft skills were essential to their success. And that's actually where they were spending their time. Communication, creative thinking, critical analytical thinking. They've got the tech down, but they also want those other core skills as well, because they're trying to create that rounded persona.
and that's always been a point of interest for me, is that connection between the two. You've got the automation and AI on one side, and the human skills on the other side, and the connection between the two. And I've always talked about augmentation, right?
Yeah,
And that's I think how we're starting, again, going back to how we're starting to see AI is augmenting the things that we do.
yeah.
I don't have the time to look up 4,000 references with regard to some point I'm trying to make, but AI can do that.
Yep.
And it's fascinating.
No, it is.
So that's cool. So there's a couple of really cool things for people to take away from this conversation. I think one is the fact that people are asking so many more questions when they're learning with AI. And another thing is that it's the skills surrounding the use of AI, not just the AI skills themselves, but the skills surrounding that. And of course, I believe, and I would suspect that you do, but I'll let you, of course, speak for yourself. Critical thinking is super important now because there's so much possibility for misinformation and hallucination
Oh,
from AI, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
100% critical thinking, analytical thinking, and that will be people's superpower, because you do have to question AI, right? I mean, like you said, AI will hallucinate, it will fill in the gaps for you, it will assume, right? And so you can't take it for granted. You do still have to have that critical thinking approach to it, and that stops from being the genericness of everything. I mean, it's interesting. The more you use AI, the more you can spot AI,
Mm-hmm.
especially as a marketer, right? The more I find that I've used AI over the past, 2 years or so, the more I can spot. And it's not just the things like the M dash, but it's the tone, the way it writes. And you got to think about, I think of it as collaborative intelligence. It's artificial and human intelligence together, because it's that human connection again, that's the personality that, yes, AI can learn your personality and your quirks, but I don't know. I think there's something special there.
I think you're right. And I think that we're going to discover a lot of things over the next few years that we haven't thought about yet. I think there's going to be some areas that are going to magically open up.
Mm-hmm.
So what's next for Genefa is my question.
What's next for me? So I think I'm. It's wonderful to actually be part of a company that's has a core mission. And I think the opportunity to learn from and learn with all of the customers that we have, whether they're individual learners, whether they're our enterprise customers, or those 80,000 instructors who literally every day are looking for the latest, newest technologies and creating content on them. They are such a wealth of information. They blow my mind all the time. So for me, yeah, it's continuing to learn from, learn with, to push myself, push my team to take advantage of the opportunity. Take advantage of the opportunity that's ahead of us with AI, with automation, with everything that comes with it, but not lose that human connection. And that goes back to your very first point that you said about being an authentic leader. I truly believe in that. And that's going to be the key, is how do you leverage all of these technologies and move super quickly, but keep that authenticness and relevance and resonance.
And that is a lovely way to wrap up our conversation here today. Thank you so much, Genefa, for taking the time out of your exceedingly busy schedule and for being a great guest. And it's lovely to see you again.
Lovely to see you. And thank you for the conversation, Roy. I've truly enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you.